Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review. We are heading towards the end of our version 14.3 series, and we are looking one last time at tabular formatting. So where do we want to start here?
So let's start with those blue tentative cells,
Okay,
which, so I've done something here that I thought I'd try, see what your thought on it is. Um, I split the options into two tables. The first table is sort of the content options, and the second is more the Chrome interface sorts of things.
we've done that in other places. I'm not sure it's a great idea, but it's a possible idea. Um, I wonder if we should have the Chrome first because it's simpler.
Possibly. And of course, it's easy enough to combine, into one table.
No, I think it's not bad, but I would just maybe we put this first, otherwise nobody will ever notice it at the end.
That makes sense.
Okay, now let's come back to this. Okay, so there are ones that are the fence and they're the ones that are the posts, so to speak, like dividers versus, background, for example.
Right.
How are we dealing with the fence versus the posts?
So I think not all of the things that we necessarily want to have control over we do yet. Um, but in general, when we were looking at it last week, the for the most part, the left-hand post is associated with the cell, um, which I think is, sort of the opposite of what you expected the last time we talked. Um,
Okay, but how is that consistent with other postery? So, for example, in grid, do we have the same issue, and how do we deal with that?
I mean that's yes, it's the same situation in grid.
I understand, but how are we dealing with it in the same way or not?
I'm
The
not sure
dividers,
I
well,
entirely understand the question. So
okay, is the post associated with the when we do dividers here, okay,
mhm.
is it the case that the first element of the dividers represents the left post of the first element?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, and is the dividers list one bigger than the number of fence pieces, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the same as we're doing in Tabular, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there compatibility between kind of the specification that you would use in grid and the specifications that you use in Tabular?
I believe there's some compatibility, but I
No,
haven't
that's
tested
not
it
good enough.
hard.
Okay,
Um,
so I mean, right now,
so in
Tabular will
general,
be ahead
Tabular
of
tends
grid.
to accept the grid type specs.
Okay, but that's not in general isn't good enough. I mean, so in other words, for this version, what we'll probably see is Tabular is ahead of grid.
Yep.
Tabular accepts everything. Grid only accepts its previous options.
Correct.
But going forward, probably grid should be should be
Hmm.
fitted out with tabular style
Exactly.
options.
Yes.
Are you all in agreement? John, are you in agreement?
It depends on the options.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that I'm not going to hold to a principle where the options might not make as much sense for grid.
All right, fair enough. But do you think these options make sense? Columns, rows, column rules, row rules, item rules.
I think those make sense for grid. The other two are less clear to me.
How does column rules make sense?
All right.
Unless it's just an index.
Yes.
That is just the position on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
what I suggest you do in this documentation here
Mhm.
is you show columns, arrow, and then you show a simple form of this.
Okay.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, this is incomprehensible as it is right now. This statement is absurd, if I might say so. I mean, it's positionally, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I suggest that you show this form, columns, arrow, that form, and then for column rules, it'll be, by the way, this, I don't understand why it's C1 here. Why isn't that S1? It's still a style.
I mean, it is a style. And for the most part, it was following what was being done, I think, in grid. And so I think that it is separated there, not by whoever originally wrote it. I haven't looked to see who it was, into sequence and cycle. I'm guessing that's what S and C are.
I know, but remember, we didn't have a cyclic wrapper then.
Yes.
That's not separated. It makes it even more obscure.
Okay.
And here, we can call that, I don't know, S sub something or other. Okay. S sub I, S sub, S sub I, comma, dot, dot, dot here. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. If you look at the grid documentation, if you scroll down just a bit, you can see grid is using it. We haven't documented cyclic here, but the cyclic type specifications use C versus S.
I know. That's because it was so obscure. Given that we didn't have cyclic explicitly there, which is what I think we should document. I think we should de-document.
I agree. We should document it, but I'm not sure. I mean, I think if I were to have written the documentation, I would probably still use C, because then I can refer to, repeating the C sub I, which might be different from the S on the left or the right. You understand what I mean?
Which is what is done there, in both of those docs, I believe.
All right, let me not micromanage this. I don't know.
Okay.
But here, the main point is the columns can either be given in these forms here.
Mm-hmm.
The column rules are the name of the column, arrow, its style, correct?
Yep.
And it says somewhere that if you don't specify the style, it will be the default style.
Correct.
Item rules. What does that take? That's a rule that takes a list of row column or what?
Yes, the left-hand side of the rule is a row column thing. And I think I like your idea of putting more into that table, because at the moment that information sort of gets pushed down far. It's
Right.
like those bottom three statements on the page at the moment.
Okay. Column key or the numerical index of a column. Okay. Okay. Okay, so which ones do not have row value function, item value function?
So the ones that have it are those three and their header variants, which I forgot to add the header
Yeah, but what
variants
else has these things but doesn't have? What has these but not these?
The things in the table above that aren't alignment background.
Tell me what they are.
Okay, so dividers, item size, item display function, uh, header size.
Why does item size doesn't have it? Because it's a rectangular grid, so it can't have it. It's not really true, actually.
I mean,
mean-
it could conceivably, but
Row value function, it could certainly have, right? Make this row taller than the other ones. Absolutely could have that.
yeah.
Item value functions just could have a disagreement.
Hmm.
But I mean, if the item size supports item rules, then it could still have that disagreement,
It could.
right? So I think those should be supported there.
Okay.
Now, that leaves over the posts, right? The dividers,
Hmm.
correct? Those are the only ones that are not included in what you just said.
Right.
How does header background relate to I don't understand how you use header background with these. Let's see. The header background, I guess, is a row-wise header background or a column-wise header background, correct?
Correct.
So how is that specified? Do you understand what I'm asking? This is telling you for a content cell at a particular row column location, here's how to format it. These are the outer boundaries of row cells, column headers, and then Nick's famous notch in the corner.
Yes.
So I don't understand how.
Also, there may be multiple rows of column headers or multiple columns of row headers.
Okay, but I don't understand how all of this stuff applies to the header stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think it's really different.
I mean, I think the columns and the rows and the column rules and the row rules, sort of are reasonably clear for headers.
I'm sorry, what are you saying? I mean, look, what I'm saying is I get all the stuff for content.
Yep.
Okay. We're done there. So now the next thing, I think we need a separate table for dividers because the dividers are going to have n+1 column and row. In other words, how do you distinguish the row dividers and the column dividers? What does it look like? What does a divider's right-hand side look like? See,
And
because
then do
here,
you?
It's
do you
just
understand
to
that here what you're doing, you're targeting a cell. A cell is defined by a particular row position and a particular column position.
Mhm.
Okay. But ultimately, you're targeting a cell. With dividers, you are, I think, targeting this whole, it's like a zero-dimensional thing. You're targeting a point versus a divider is a line. Am I right, Roger? Am I right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think so. If you scroll down and look at a tabular, just any tabular,
Um, yes.
so the dividers being, if we think of them as the left thing, then you're asking about, say, the line that's to the right of the 3 and the 9 in that first tabular.
Where do I see a 3 and a 9?
Oh, 3 and a 6, sorry.
I don't care which line I'm asking about, but I'm just saying that it's the whole line, right? I want to specify. I mean, in other words, if I say dividers arrow, you know, rows arrow, blah, 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 that is giving me the styling. So if I take that for that tabular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say dividers arrow, rows arrow, blue, red, green.
Oh, I see your question. No, you are not going to get the styling. You only get the true or false. So dividers is only turning
Oh,
on and
come
off.
on.
Th
Well,
that
what
is
if I want to get styles? I mean, everything else gives me styles, right? If I say this, if I say background,
yes.
what
How did
happened to that?
that?
What happened to that?
Well, because this is the build that doesn't have it.
Oh, I thought it looked like it was working well enough for this.
No, there was a few issues. So
Ah,
Okay, so
yeah,
it's totally broken. Maybe we should postpone this meeting. I mean, this should turn these rows
yes,
red and green,
yes,
blue and red rather.
yes,
Okay.
it should. Yes.
Okay, so I want to turn the dividers different colors. How do I do that?
Table view doesn't support differently styled dividers in the content section yet. So that's a table view limitation, not a tabular limitation.
So here, what I would say is true arrow false. And then
Yes.
actually I've got a third one because I've got 1, 2, 3 here. True, right?
Yes.
It doesn't work, but that should make,
Yes. That should make the row one and row the line between row one and row two disappear.
yes. Okay. But so is our plan to support styles eventually in the dividers option?
I think it should.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So this represents what happens in the horizontal dividers and columns, the vertical dividers.
Yes.
Now, if we have something like column rules, okay,
Mhm.
what would that mean? In other words, which divider, the column rules for column 2, which divider do they correspond to?
That will be the line between column one and two.
How do I get that line there?
So that in table view is controlled by frame.
You know, I kind of think I think there are many cases where you'd kind of like to address the two sides of a particular column. You want to highlight the column, something like this.
Mhm.
And the fact you have to go to its neighbor and kind of go house to house and ask for help type thing seems undesirable.
I was gonna say, can I share for a second, Stephen?
Yes. Are you ready?
I will request the share. Okay, so there, we'll make that nice and big.
I'm not seeing it, so maybe I can stop sharing here.
I think you need to switch your Zoom tab to
Share again. Now, how do I switch the Zoom tab? Oh, there's no way to do it. That's weird. Oh, no, maybe there is. Hold on. Let me try. Yeah.
I occasionally miss 2019 Zoom.
Oh, Christ, there's no way to do this. All right. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm sharing now.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, fine. Right. So this is rows, true, false, and so true is this one, then false, then true, and then there's a line here, but that's not the divider, right? I don't know what this is. Is it frame?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Why
it's
is it coming
just
up as red?
because
Um,
I think it's an option in table view, but not necessarily tabular.
maybe that's what it is.
I see.
Does the frame go outside the headers?
No, actually, it's not showing up for table view either.
Okay. Okay, so. But anyway, what I was going to say is that divider style at the moment is controlled by the frame style, and so
And so the frame knits in and out of kind of the headers in that rather weird way.
yes. Yeah, I mean, this is...
That seems wrong. I mean, first of all, the frame option should work, yes, just like it does for grid.
Well,
think
modulo the question of what to do about headers, but yeah.
Mhm. I mean, because grid has true, false, and all. And if you go true,
right.
okay, now do all.
Right.
So we
the...
probably have one option.
And it also has a positional spec, but the positional spec can get very weird. And in fact, the documentation is missing a number of examples because of the weirdness of the positional spec.
Well, so let's clean this up. I mean, let's make frame, have an association, just like all these other things. So
Yeah,
that we can have...
yeah, well, it's not obvious how to clean it up. Let me put it that way. Not saying it can't be done, but it's not
Okay.
obvious how.
But we could have a frame arrow full that distinguishes between the case where you have headers framed and not, possibly.
So
All
full
right.
would be like frame around the headers, but not everything else.
Well, no, I don't think that would be the right thing. I mean, we could say frame arrow headers or something. I mean, we have to have the possibility, okay, the header elements, which, as you say, can be multi-decker,
Mm-hmm.
have yeah, I mean, what's kind of icky is that we can specify with column, row name, column name, we can specify an element. But if we want to dive in and specify a header element, it's a little less savory. True or not true? Do you understand what I'm saying? If I want to put a background on a particular header element, could you address that issue, please?
Just a second. I'm just...
Okay, see this, but then... Okay, fine. All right, so I want to put a background under the C. How do I
Right.
do it?
Then it will be header background. And it's going to be column rules. And it's going to be C, or I think C is unique, so it should work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No.
Well, the fact that the X is also being stylized, I would consider a minor bug that I will need to work with
I
table
mean,
view.
it's not.
It's not obvious that it's a bug.
No, it's not. And if
So-
I say D is something, then it doesn't get an opportunity to touch that space, right? Because there's only a single
Try it. D.
rectangle there.
All right. So let me understand how I would address the C without addressing the X. What could I say in column rules that gets me the C without the X? Basically, the problem is maybe column rules, it's correct that it labels both of them, but then there is a item rules that could be used for this, but then which you were telling me item rules didn't apply in the header column. But if we had item rules there, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Then we could independently address, but I don't know what the name of the C is as opposed to.
Right. I think C should be addressed as extended key X comma C. But the problem
Fine.
is
Yeah.
then there is no extended key of X.
Well, but let's try that. Let's try that. Could you go back? Just make another copy of that thing.
This thing?
Yeah, that thing there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then just say header back and column rules X arrow yellow and nothing else. Well, you can say X arrow yellow. No, now D, to get rid of the D. Get rid of the D.
Yep.
Okay, that seems to me to be a bug. I mean, isn't it the case?
Mm,
Well,
well,
no,
so
because
mhm,
this would refer to a column named just X.
I
mhm.
see. So what if you
Right.
said
So if I
X
rename E to
extended
X,
key? Yeah, okay, fine. If you said extended key of X comma blank arrow yellow, still not going to work. Still not going to work because that's going to be the
it's not going
whole
to work, and it's not going to work
for
even
several
what that
reasons, for
should
multiple
do.
reasons.
Oh, it did. Okay, cool. I was not expecting that to work.
Okay, but nevertheless, the point that I was making before, that there is a coordinate way of specifying any cell in the body of the tabular.
Mhm.
Right? There is no coordinate way of specifying pieces of the headers.
Correct.
Correct.
I think we're missing that. I think we need such a thing.
Mhm.
Right,
And
but at the same time, column rules, row rules, do make sense and are separate from columns and rows. As
oh yeah, they make
members
perfect
of that
sense in the
association.
case. Okay, let me characterize. Okay. Okay, I'm going to make 3 comments here. Okay, first point is they make perfect sense for inner cellular content. See what I'm saying? The background of a particular cell in the interior of the tabula. They
Right.
make perfect sense.
So the solid interior of
Yes,
a rectangle.
yes. Okay, so next point. I think we should have a frame option. I think we should distinguish. Okay, dividers divide, frames enclose. Okay, so for example, I could imagine being able to frame a row
Mm-hmm.
or frame an element. In other
Right,
words,
and
I could
you
imagine.
want to be able to say that this 12 has a blue frame and this 13 has a red frame, and this line here, one side of it is blue and one side of it is red.
Well, maybe I want that, but let's not worry about that for a second.
Okay.
But that line could be separately green as a divider. So in other words, okay, the first level is I've got an element, just like it can have a background, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
blah. I'd also like to be able to frame that element. Like, look at me, I'm the element you want to look at type thing.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? By framing the element, using something directly analogous to item rules, blah, 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 blah. See what I'm saying? In other words, the column rules, columns, key, columns, rows, all that kind of stuff, all that equipment should work just fine for framing elements in the interior.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so that's that point. Do we agree about this? So then there'll be a framing mechanism that is independent of the divider mechanism. The divider mechanism is somehow lower level than the framing mechanism. Do you see what I'm saying? So in the
Yes,
event of a
I'm
disagreement,
thinking if
divider
it's
wins.
lower level or higher level, but I understand. I think what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think it's right. I don't know. I'm not sure that's the right way around, but we'll figure that out.
Yep.
Okay. So now the remaining issue, as I see it, is how to reference pieces of headers, both in
Mhm.
terms of their framing and their background colors and all that kind of things. Okay, so let me could you go back to the documentation for a second, please?
Yep.
Okay, let's scroll back up to look at the options here. Okay, and I think we
size good or does it
agree.
need magnified?
What's that?
Is the size good or does
Well,
it need magnified?
That's fine.
Okay.
With item size, and item style and so on, all of those, it seems to me, should take the whole inner cellular specification options. Do you see what I'm saying? So you could say item size, arrow, item rules, arrow, 7.6, arrow, 15 or something.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what that will do is it will do its best to satisfy what you asked for. So it will push out the rest of the tabular to make that item that size, thereby expanding its or contracting its row and column.
Right.
Does that make sense? Now, okay, does that Jason A, is that consistent with what you've implemented?
Yeah, item size with the items indexed option in table view should push out row and column sizes. I'm just testing that right now.
Okay, fine. Okay, an item display. So all of these functions, except the ones that are header star, support all these options, including frame, which should be sort of moved up to that section.
Yep.
In fact, I don't even know why any of these things. I mean, base style could support all this stuff as well.
No, I don't think base style should support that.
Well, okay, whatever. But okay, lots of things can support this notation for saying how to distinguish different elements. You know, how to do these things with different elements. Okay. All right. So now the big thing that leaves is the header stuff. Is that right? Is that the main other thing that we need to talk about?
So I think so, and then also wanted to give you a chance to see the function versions that we came up with last time.
What function versions?
So that is, so at the moment it was, we've I think sort of promoted them now, but it was
to many
this thing that
things,
was
yeah.
limited to what we thought it applied to, where it's row value function and item value function that make styling determinations based on.
Either return a setting to use with entire row or a list. Okay, so the question is, let me make a suggestion here. Let me make a suggestion. Either row value function just returns blue or something like this.
Yep.
Right? Or I claim, maybe this is crazy, it should return an association. Is that crazy? Row value function.
Sorry,
I don't understand why there isn't a column value function.
the column value function is built in the item value function. So last time we were talking about this, and we decided since the arguments are the same, so they should be combined. So
Why
to
isn't
recap,
Well, I mean,
no, I don't understand.
so the raw value function will take the whole tabular raw as the first argument.
Yes?
yes.
And what would a column value function take? It would take a whole
That
tabular
would
column.
that will take the individual value in each
No, I mean,
row
no, I
No.
mean,
in
I
that
think
column.
Steven's thinking a column value function that the
To take-
value is the entire column.
The food is the entire column. The thing it's fed is the entire column. And if you extract a column from a tabular, you get a tabular column, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't understand why we wouldn't just do that. Right? A column value function like a row value function. I'm not seeing any argument against that. And the row value function gets a tabular row.
I see what you're saying, but in the study cases that we have done, we never saw a case that use the whole column values to do something.
Who knows?
Because
Who cares? Why wouldn't you do that?
because each row is an incidence of all the parameters, which are all the columns. So if you are asking the values for specific parameter,
I don't think you can have that logic.
But
I
you
mean,
might,
you're making an assumption about, yeah. Go
an
ahead.
example might be if I had a bunch of columns of, say, housing data for, different neighborhoods. I might want to mark the ones that had a median above a certain amount.
Yeah,
in
right.
blue,
It's
red.
easy to come up. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to come up with. I think we want a column value function. Okay. I also think that we should I would argue, let me think. The issue is with item value function, we are being given the things item by item, right?
Yes.
But what are we exactly being given? What's being fed to it?
You are given the value, the
I
row
see.
column
Position.
position, and the tabular.
So what would be involved in making item value function take the individual item value, the row column, then a list of the tabular row and the tabular column? And then the whole tabular. Because that way, item value function could do anything you want.
I mean, you could do anything you want even without getting the row and the column because
Well,
it
it
has
could
the
extract
position
them.
and the tabular.
Well, fair enough. But you see, I'm trying to avoid this thing where the row value function returns this list of key values.
Right.
Because I think I think it's going to cause us trouble. I feel like if it's going to return that, it should return a tabular row or something instead of just a naked key value thing. I'm not
And
certain.
actually, I think it probably can. I just didn't document it.
Okay, fine. Don't try it. I'm late.
Yep,
for the
okay.
meal, so please don't try it. I have a gut problem with that returning list of key value pairs. I don't know. Something about that just seems. I mean, in the item value, for some bizarre reason, you're returning the column value, but you could be returning I don't even understand why it does that, because item value function,
Right, it probably doesn't need to.
no, it doesn't need that. It
Well-
knows what item it's talking about. Hello, I've got this item. Now
But
tell
no,
me
I
what
mean,
color it
so
should
this
be.
isn't return, or did I say something else?
Yes, it is the
somewhere?
return.
Well,
No,
what
no,
the,
this is the input. I mean, this is you are saying
Oh, I see. I
for
see.
this column,
Right.
this is the function
I
I
see. I
want
see.
to
I see. I
apply.
see. I see. So in other
So
words,
that
instead of an if
basically is
statement,
your column.
right, instead of putting an if statement in the item value function, you're putting it out here.
Yes.
Right. So that is essentially your column value function. It's just going item by item instead of the entire column all at once.
Yeah, well, I think we should have a column value.
Okay.
But even here, I don't quite understand why we don't have that list have the possibility of row, comma, column, arrow, blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying if we can get columns there, why can we not get row, column, row, comma, column, individually addressing? In other words, the item value function could either take the row column coordinates and then say, okay, now use this function, different row column coordinate, use that function, and so on.
Mhm.
Or we could externalize that and have the item value function setting be a list of the form, 1 goes to blah, 2 3 goes to blah, etc. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes.
And I think there's an argument to be able to do that. I think that's convenient. And you
Right. Yeah,
could
so
have an if
if
statement
if
inside the
the
function.
left-hand side matches, is a list and it matches your position, then it applies.
Yes.
That's correct. Right. Right. Okay. So that's those. That would be my suggestion for that. Let's
Mhm.
talk about the headers for a minute, and then I really need to go.
Yep.
Okay. So the issue with the headers, could you go back to that example you were showing before?
Oh, sorry. Over here. Yes.
Right. So the issue with the headers is how do you address? I mean, I don't even know. I can't even imagine what we're doing with dividers in the headers. That seems horrifying. And a good reason to use frame. I mean, header frame to add some kind of header frame type thing, if that is indeed the right way to do it. I'm kind of wondering whether we shouldn't just bite the bullet and have coordinates for those headers, as in just call it maybe even just the word header, but maybe something more ornate than that. Basically, header of A means the header of column A. Just like extended key is a way of saying, well, that references a whole column, but somehow we want to be able to reference just the header. See, even that's not going to be enough because extended key is a double-decker header.
Or triple, or
Yeah, a quintuple, whatever. It extends anyway. So, I'm looking at this thing. I want to turn the B blue, for example. I want to put blue background in the B position. Okay, now I know I can do that with the one level thing, but if I have an extended key, how do I? Okay, so one thing is, okay, so let's just understand header background. We've got row rules, we've got column rules. Dandy. Okay, so that seems to work. So that just in the column rules, just add something there that says A goes to green. Okay, magnificent. Okay, I'm not even going to think about how dividers works here, even though that is important, right? And maybe we have to have a header divider. Also, Nick's corner. How do we address Nick's corner?
I think we
Last time.
still don't have a way other than just whatever the global
Mhm.
header background is. So if I say header background is, cyan, then it turns cyan.
Yeah, but how do I then have the other things turn something?
Exactly.
Well, so maybe in header background in the association, look, why don't we just have a thing that says corner, arrow, blah, blah, blah? People might even have a fighting chance of understanding what that means.
Yes. I mean, I think design-wise that's reasonable. I don't know implementationally if it's there yet.
Okay. All right, but we can
Incidentally,
go ahead, Bud.
Well, people do want to be able to put things in that top left corner. It's and having a diagonal line going from the upper left to the bottom right with
Yes, that's another point, is putting content at that corner,
Mhm.
which we don't even have the possibility of here.
Correct. Yeah, the Nick's corner is a place where there's room for improvement.
Maybe we could call it corner appearance and have that be a proper top level option, corner appearance, and that has a whole association of all kinds of different things you can do. Yeah, that kind of thing. What happens if I want to have a, what happens if I just want to write an outer thing that says, like I do on a plot, like the analog of axis
Plot.
label, frame label rather. Why don't we support a frame label option here? I think that will be useful.
To
See
go
what I'm saying?
around the whole tabular or to go around?
No, the whole tabular. So you can say at the top, cities or something, or then you could say, I mean, you could do something where you have a partially spanning thing in the way that you've shown there with the X. But there's
Mhm.
also just I want to label that whole, the rows, for
Right.
example,
You
might easily want
want
to label.
something like that.
Well, maybe that's the way to do it. What happens if I do the left, try left? I don't think it's going to work correctly.
It's not going to rotate by default.
Can you say rotated arrow true in labeled?
I don't think so.
Maybe we should allow that.
Oh, hey.
Gorlosaurus. But maybe we should have frame label just work inside Tabular. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, and my concern would be that then when we have the individual frames.
No, it's kind of worms.
Yeah.
I see that we couldn't have a label that is an inner frame label. I agree with that.
Yes.
All right, I think we've got some useful direction here. We have not fully solved the problem, and maybe we won't for this version.
I don't think we will completely solve it
addressable-
for 14.3, but we've got enough
Right.
to get good experience with things.
Yes.
So
May we come back to the column value function just one more time? So the column value function is going to take tabular column. So is it going to be perpendicular to row value function? So the index will be the row index instead of column. So
Yes.
Brett, if you could
yeah.
scroll down a little bit.
I think yes.
Okay. So right there, row value function takes the columns, go to row value function. So for the column value function, that will be a row index or row key.
Well, I mean,
That's
I
correct.
think possibly
That's
this
correct.
instance of row value function is becoming item value function with
I think we
you
can
know,
still have this. There's nothing
okay.
wrong with this. If we're going to do this, but we can do the exact same thing with column value function, where then that's a row in, that's row index arrow.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
I think-
Last question, nice and easy.
No way. Go
Mhm.
ahead.
So
Go on.
tabular can, is like serves as show for tabular. So tabular of an existing tabular comma options gives you a new tabular with those options applied.
Yep.
Down here in the notes or up in the usage statement?
What do we do with other things like this?
It should be in the notes.
Fine.
Okay.
I agree.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. See you all soon. Bye.
See